so much, ma'am.
Okay. On the next one, this is the chapter which we have learned Bharat came to India by the invitation given by various Rajputas and the governor of Bengal. They invited him thinking that he could also come and after conquering Ibrahim Lodi, he would go back. But then it didn't happen. He stayed here in India and Bharat. Actually, in India. First time of my cousin, 326, he had Bharat, followed by Mayu, son of Bharat, then a short period we had the dynasty, with Sher Shah Suri, and we had Akbar, followed the various policies which he had put forward. Now we have finished till the Akbar's Rajput policy. We have done that. We have done religious beliefs. Okay? Various Rajput rulers who agreed. He his friends, they were given independence. They were not bothered by the Mughals. Whereas those who did not cater to the needs of Akbar, they were subjugated. A battle was fought. You remember Battle of Haldi. It was fought whether power supremacy went into the hands of Akbar. Okay. Then we talk of the religious policy, where Akbar installed a common sitting area where he incorporated people from all religions. They came here and all the good points of all the religions were incorporated, were taken. Now we move on to Jahangir. The next person. He was also the son of Akbar, and he lived 1605 dealing with Jahangir. Let's go on. Jahangir, the eldest son of Akbar, succeeded to the throne in 1605. He imprisoned his son, when he revolted against him, and in the long-standing conflict between the Mewars.
Ma'am, your voice is not coming.
He
It is
subdued
little bit lagging.
but his campaign against the Deccan states was not successful. His son, Prince Khurram, that is Shah Jahan, captured the fort of Kangra, but Jahangir lost Kandahar to the Persians. Early in life, his father Akbar was angry with him or Alan of Anarkali. So now, this paragraph tells you a brief description about how he came to power. See, underline his son Khusro. He had revolted against him, so he ended the long-standing conflict. Okay, and the conflict was between the Mewars and the Mughals, the Rajputs. The Mewar was ruled by the Rajputs at that time. Okay, then he also subdued Afghans of Bengal. The Bengal area under the Afghans was in his hands, and he subjugated the power of the Afghans. But his campaign against the Deccan states was not successful. Please underline not successful. Campaign against Deccan states. Okay. He captured the fort of Kangra, underline fort of Kangra, but he lost Kandahar, underline Kandahar, to the Persians. Okay. Then in early life, Akbar was not happy with him. Why? Because it was him, he was attached to a female called Anarkali, and Akbar was against this relation. So he had a conflict between him and Akbar, his father. Okay, are we clear till here? Then we move on to Tuzuke Jahangiri, that means a book written on him. Now, the autobiography of Jahangir gives a good idea about the man and his interests. Now, it's an autobiography, underline autobiography, and call it Tuzuke Jahangiri. It shows him as a man of justice. He was a very pious man. He stood for justice. He also gave 12 rules of conduct. That means there were 12 rules of conduct which were to be followed. Okay. Now, what were they? What was it all about? To be observed by all his people, read the following description. Now, here we go. After my accession, that means once accession means coming to power. The first order I gave was for the fastening of the chain of justice, so that the oppressed might come to this chain and shake it, so that its noise might attract attention. One end was fastened to the fort at Agra, and the other end to a stone post fixed on the bank of the river. So now this is a lovely gesture. You should know about the details. What happened was when Jahangir was ruling, he appointed a chain of justice. That means a big, huge bell, just as you must have seen a temple bell, ghanti, ghanta, whatever it is, that was hung in the center of the Agra fort. You can see that the fort at Agra, it was hung there. And one chain was attached for the people to bring it at the time if they thought that anything unjust has been done to them. Okay? कोई भी problem होती थी उनको, किसी भी गरीब को, they didn't have to wait to meet the king. They could just go and ring that bell, and with the noise of that bell, the justice was imparted immediately. Okay? जैसे ही कोई को प्रॉब्लम होती थी, किसी के संग अन्याय हुआ है, so they didn't have to wait for anything. वो chain of justice के पास जाता था, and he used to pull it with all force and make the noise, and the king himself, Jahangir himself, imparted justice. He went and listened to the matter and gave justice. Is this much clear to each one of you? Then we move on. Clear, baby? Then we have Noor Jahan. Jahangir married Noor Jahan in 1611 AD. Please underline the date. Noor Jahan and Jahangir got married on 1611 AD. Her real name was Mehrun Nisa. Please underline her real name. She is popularly known as by us as Noor Jahan, but her name was Mehrun Nisa. Jahangir made her the chief queen and gave her the title of Noor Jahan, that means the light of the world. She was considered as the light of the world, and she was called by Jahangir as Noor Jahan. Okay? She was extremely talented and beautiful. Persian art and culture flourished under her influence. Now, she was a great ardent fan of art and culture, and because of her, basically, the art and culture flourished during that time. Okay? Then she struck coins. Sorry, Persian art and culture flourished under her influence. She struck coins and also made land grants. So this tells us that she held a very important position. Why? Because the coins were made under her name. That means the currency had a figure of hers. The face was also there on the coin, depicting Noor Jahan during the time of Jahangir. Okay? Then she took up the important administrative posts, and she and her family members had important administrative posts. That means important posts were handed over to her. She was able to influence Jahangir in his decisions. Her efforts to promote her son-in-law Shahryar to the throne made Prince Khurram revolt against Jahangir. When Jahangir died, Noor Jahan lived a retired life till her death 18 years later. So now, while she was there, she had great influence over Jahangir. So much so that when her daughter got married to Shahryar, it was Noor Jahan who wanted Shahryar to take away the throne and be the next ruler after Jahangir. But Prince Khurram did not let this happen. He was against all this. So he was the one who took a stand and said, no, This will not happen. There was a small revolt also. And finally, the throne came over to Prince Khurram, who was later known as Shah Jahan. Okay. Now we next come on to Shah Jahan. Let's do it. I hope the blackboard is visible, though it is little. It must be coming to you as the inverted image, isn't it? Are you getting it straight?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. After the death of Jahangir, Khurram succeeded to the Mughal throne as Shah Jahan in 1628. So it was after the death of Jahangir who took over the power. It was Prince Khurram, who was later known as Shah Jahan. He declared himself the ruler and he took over the power in 1628 AD. Okay. Shah Jahan was the fifth Mughal emperor after Babur. So obviously you can see the sequence there. Babur, and then he was the fifth Mughal emperor. Can you all see this? Humayun, then Sher Shah, then Akbar, then Jahangir, and then it was Shah Jahan. Is the chronological order clear and visible to each one of you? It has to be. Okay. So he was the fifth Mughal emperor. Humayun, Akbar, and Babur, Humayun, Akbar, and Jahangir. He succeeded to the throne upon his father Jahangir's death in 1627 AD. Shah Jahan's reign was largely peaceful. So basically, it was a peaceful reign. There was not much of chaos like the ones faced by Babur and Humayun. It was better. He didn't have to face many problems. The Rajputs were well settled. Everything was under control. So this was one of the biggest reasons why Shah Jahan constructed number of monuments, because he had ample time for construction, for art and culture to flourish. It is said also that he was a master builder. During his time, it was the time when number of monuments were made. And if you remember Taj Mahal, you all must be knowing it. So that was one of the wonders which he constructed. Okay. So he was a master builder. And why was it? Because the reign was a peaceful one. There were not much uprisings. The kingdom was peaceful and quiet, which gave a lot of time for him to inculcate and move forward with these activities. Okay. There was prosperity in the empire during his reign. Architecture witnessed tremendous growth. He built the Taj Mahal at Agra. Please underline that. In the memory of his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. So Shah Jahan's wife's name was Mumtaz Mahal, and in her memory, Taj Mahal was built. Please underline Mumtaz Mahal. He also built a new city called Shah Jahanabad. Please underline, now known as Old Delhi. Okay, it is closer to Delhi. It is closer to New Delhi, and it is presently, instead of calling it Shah Jahanabad, it is now called as Old Delhi. Okay, and made it its capital. Okay. He also sent his armies to far away Balkh and Badakhshan in Central Asia. Basically, Balkh and Badakhshan, they are next to places presently in Afghanistan. Okay. So these two places, Balkh and Badakhshan, he had sent his armies to these places to conquer them. This as well as campaign to recover Kandahar was unsuccessful. So Balkh, Badakhshan, and Kandahar, these three places he had set out his army to go and capture. But it was an unsuccessful attempt. He could not win over these places. These places were in Central India, Central Asia. Sorry, I'm sorry, it is in Central Asia, and he could not win over these places. Okay. European traders continued their trading activities during the reign of Shah Jahan. So now was the time when trade and commerce also flourished. That means they had ample time for trade and commerce. So traders from Europe visited him in his kingdom, and it was here that everything was managed. This tells us in great detail that he was the one who put forward the trade and commerce. He accelerated, he gave speed to the upbringing of trade and commerce. Okay. They established numerous trading outposts in different parts of the empire. When he came to know that the Portuguese were not paying custom duties, he defeated them and made them trade on his terms. So these Portuguese, the first trading unit which came to India were the Portuguese. Okay, from Portugal they had come. These Portuguese, they had established a trading center in India. That means a place they had occupied in our soil, in the Indian soil, and they were not paying the duties. Seeing this, he got annoyed and he defeated them, and in return, they had to pay the taxes to him. Okay, now we all know that the Portuguese were the first trading units. After them, the French came and came the Britishers. You remember? And then the Britishers, they came as trading units and gradually they settled here in India and they also occupied India. And you remember the British rule in India, it came after this only. After the end of the Mughal Empire, these English trading units, the Britishers, who first came as trading units, they occupied India, they started grabbing posts, and gradually they became the supreme lords of India. Okay? India lost its independence to these Britishers. And then in 1947, we regained our independence. You remember that? You know that? तुम्हें पता है ना हम लोग ब्रिटिश के अंडर में रहे हैं पता है ना उनकी गुलामी की है इंडिया ने so it was this time when Shah Jahan was ruling that the trading units started coming to India and the first trading unit was from Portugal. Okay, the Portuguese came as the first traders, then came the French, then came the British. Portuguese were defeated, they went away. French, they were also defeated, they went away. But Britishers were very powerful, they could not be defeated, they stayed, they expanded, and they took over the entire country. Okay? Okay. So now we talk of the sources. We come to know about his reign from several works, the most notable being Badshah Nama, underline that, of Abdul Hamid Lahori. Please underline the whole name, Abdul Hamid Lahori. What was the name of the book he had written? Badshah Nama. Then Shah Jahan Nama is another valuable work for this period. Foreign travelers, missionaries, and merchants who visited India in the 16th and 17th and the early part of the 18th century have left invaluable accounts of the period of Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. So many foreign travelers who visited India in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, they have given a valuable and huge amount of source to us. We have immense knowledge about this period through the writing of the various foreign travelers who visited India. Okay. Now, the most well-known are Berniers. Please underline Bernier is the name of a writer. Berniers, and his book is Travels in the Mughal Empire. It was written in 1656, 1688 AD. Please underline the date also. And there's another book with Travels in India by Tavernier. So Bernier and Tavernier, these were the two foreign travelers who gave immense knowledge about the period through these two books. Okay, please underline the name of the book, the writer, and the year in which it was written. Next, we move on. Shah Jahan was a firm and capable ruler who Bernier says ruled as a father over his family. Now, Bernier, while he was writing the account of his time, of Shah Jahan's time, he gave us the knowledge that the king, Shah Jahan, ruled as a father figure. He was so nice and humble towards his people that he's regarded as a father figure at that time. Okay? He paid a lot of attention to the minute details of his administration and military campaign. Every minutest detail of his administration, how he is going to rule, what all possibilities are there to keep his kingdom and people happy, how he can economically hold the good and everything great about the kingdom. All this was looked after by him, and it was he who worked as a father figure for his subjects. Okay, in the Mughal dynasty, there was no clear law of succession. So that means in the Mughal times, there was no clear law of succession. That means after the king, his son would rule, there was no clear succession. It is not the eldest son who will get the power. It is the one who will be capable enough to fight back, will be the one who will gain the power. Even before Shah Jahan died, a fight broke out between his four sons, Dara, Shuja, Murad, and Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb came to the throne in 1658 AD after defeating his brothers and making his father a virtual prisoner at the Agra fort. Shah Jahan's daughter Jahanara cared for him in his last days. He died in 1666 AD. So now we talk of Shah Jahan's four sons, Dara, Shuja, Murad, and Aurangzeb. Now we know that Dara was the eldest. So after Shah Jahan, actually Dara should have taken the throne. But what happened? Aurangzeb, being more powerful, being more arrogant, he fought against the three brothers and took over the power. And he was the one who came to the throne after Shah Jahan. Okay? And he also captivated his own father and made him a prisoner in Agra fort. So the last years of Shah Jahan were spent in Agra fort. Okay? And who took care of him at that time? It was his daughter, Shah Jahan's daughter, called Jahanara. Please underline Jahanara, who took great care of his father and was there with him till he died. Okay? We stop here for today. In our next class, we'll do Aurangzeb and we will finish off. Is everything clear till here?